What's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam, the Madman and Thriller back together again for all of your UCLA football needs. And of course, it's a royal Wednesday evening because we have our royal guest, the man who needs no introduction, the man, the myth, the legend, the Silver Fox, the first quarterback to beat USC back-to-back years. Something that Cade McNown and Brett Hundley emulated in his footsteps as the Pathfinder, the one and only, the great Wayne Cook. Wayne, so great to see you as always.
Gentlemen, it is, we just keep piling these up here. We keep doing these shows, and UCLA football is, what a remarkable turnaround. What a validation for UCLA to go on the road to play that early morning, 9 a.m. here game, and to win a game in a fashion like, if you think about it, you guys, Michigan State was scoring. I mean, they were scoring 24 and up in every other game. They scored 13 against UCLA, the same team that couldn't stop New Mexico from running the ball in the second half, and really, the last touchdown or the last points was garbage time. They gave up a score on the first drive and then shut them out. I'm just blown away. I'm blown away with how much better. I mean, we've talked about the offense a lot, but what that defense did was incredible, and it should give Bruin fans even more hope going forward because it looks like it's more of a complete team at this point.
No question about it, Wayne. And we'll sort of jump into it in terms of your thoughts. I don't think we saw this performance coming. I think we felt really good after the Penn State game. Can we carry the momentum over? Liked our chances, even though this was an 8.5-point underdog going at Michigan State. But to see the way they did it, 38 consecutive points at one point, 3 short fields, courtesy of incredible defensive play, both via turnover as well as fourth down stop, 3 touchdown drives, sub 35 yards. It was an absolute comprehensive effort, knocking Aiden Childs out of the game. Yep. The darling of the UCLA coaching search of the last 18 months, Jonathan Smith, looked like he didn't know what he was doing. And this was just an incredible performance here, most complete victory, Wayne, perhaps in the last 2 years. I mean, even that 3-game winning streak that we had last year, some close games, right? I mean, against Rutgers, Nebraska kind of came back on us a little bit. That Iowa game was close. This was just a comprehensive defeat of a Big Ten opponent. What did you see on Saturday that was maybe surprised you and what you were most impressed by?
It's 2 weeks in a row that we've outcoached the opponent. It's also, and I'm going to say this, it's 2 weeks in a row that UCLA had the better players. We won against Penn State. I didn't feel like I walked away from that game thinking, wow, we got lucky. I felt like we beat them. But you add that week of confidence and belief, and we talked about how the other team would be able to watch some film, but we also needed to accept the fact that the offense and the defense with Coach Coyle and with Coach Neuheisel were going to have more time to do what they do. Tim Skipper, we had a great conversation with him this week, and he talked about how much they've been giving the defense. We talked about series where the secondary looked like lockdown. We haven't talked about Jordan at all. He made a play in the end zone on a deep ball that was as good a form as you could have, and he's a long, athletic DB. We've already talked about Pleasant, who's can run with anybody in the nation, and his skills. But the safeties played better. The linebackers were on it. You mentioned knocking out Aiden Childs, Keanu Williams. And this is one of the cool things about this defense is they started with fundamentals. They started with something as simple as stance. And now they're adding stuff, and the players are just absorbing it. We're seeing that we always had athletes. They just needed to be kind of steered in the right direction. And now you got a player like Keanu who's on the defensive line who's chasing down a play. Aiden Childs cuts back in, and he just gets, and I still remember like all the broadcasters were just like, oh, that was a big hit. And that was it for Aiden Childs. And Keanu hustled downfield and chased the play. And what Tim Skipper talks about a lot is the energy and the 11 guys hustling to the football. I mean, I know we sometimes forget about stuff like that. I'm a big believer in quarterbacks carrying out their fakes. I'm a big believer in everybody doing the little things that make, receivers need to block downfield, like all this little stuff. And it wasn't even like we didn't make mistakes. We had some penalties that we shouldn't have had. We had some holding on the outside that we shouldn't have had. And Tim Skipper says, yeah, we're playing this kind of football, but there's still so much more in us. So I don't know. I'm surprised at the turnaround and how good we look. But I'm also, after Penn State, I watched Michigan State on film, and I went, you know what? I think we're better than they are. I didn't know if we were that much better. But I'll be honest with you. I didn't like Aiden Childs. I think Jonathan Smith made a huge mistake by not benching him before that game. I think if you have a receiver like Marsh, why wouldn't you? I mean, Aiden Childs, if you guys know anything about quarterback, you just watch him play. His feet are a disaster. He doesn't even come close to throwing the way he's supposed to. He missed a play on this game that was so wide open on the outside. He missed him by 5 yards, but if you watch enough film, he does that all the time. So I don't know why they're sticking with him from so long. Milivojevic, whatever his name is, he's a better thrower. Yeah. And you saw how he was getting the ball to Marsh, and that actually showed a little spark for them. But, I could keep going again all day. But I just love the way we're playing on both sides of the ball. I love the aggressiveness of the coaching staff. And it just feels like we're being coached so smartly. I know that's probably not a great word, but I just feel like our coaches are so on it right now. It's incredible, and the players are buying in. Not one guy left in that 30-day window. Not one guy left. That's pretty cool.
Cool indeed. Cool indeed, Wayne. Thriller, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just had a question I wanted to pin to you guys. The run game has been a revelation these last two games. And you look at what the offensive line is doing with another coach that kind of feels a little underappreciated in Coach Andy Kwan. You saw what Jalen Berger did this weekend, 3 touchdowns against his former team. Jet Thomas is getting things going. Talk about this run game, because it seems like for the first 4 weeks with Nico out there, he was kind of the only guy that could really generate some rush offense. I almost felt this week was more important for the team moving forward because Nico didn't run the ball. We still ran for 230-plus yards on the ground. So talk to me about the run game and the offensive line that UCLA has been putting out here the last 2 weeks.
Well, listen, it's the key to the whole thing. It's the run game has been the key offensively and defensively. We're chewing up minutes. There was a drive I don't remember if it was in the third quarter or whatever, but it just felt like a lot of time had passed and the game was kind of getting close to being over because, UCLA can run the football. I think Nico was 16 for 24. And I asked him after the game, he had a slow start. He missed some guys. He had crossing routes to Mikey Matthews that he missed that might have been a touchdown. He had a couple other ones. I think he had one to Quasi that he could hit too. But that's what I love about this team right now. No, Cade didn't complete every pass. I know when I was throwing to JJ, I didn't complete every pass. And to be honest with you, he didn't catch every pass. We all like to remember it that way. Danny Farmer didn't catch every pass. We all try to remember it that way because it's kind of like, that's back in the past and everything was great. But what good teams do that win is they just come back on the next play and they complete the next pass. And it was funny because on the first 3 and out where Nico missed a couple, he completed one that was a nice tight spot. It didn't get a first down, and it didn't lead to anything. But I went, he's fine now. And it's like quarterbacks, all they have to do is see one, or it's like shooters. You see one go in, and it's everything that you might have missed 8 in a row, but you're good now. Let's go. Let's keep playing. And so Nico can play quarterback. And I've always felt like as a quarterback, your job is to allow – I think we've got a stable of running backs, and I'm going to add Frias too. Anthony Woods looked good until he got hurt. I mean, he had a move on the outside where I'm like, oh, my gosh, this guy has electric speed. I love the way Thomas is built like that. He's just built like a running back. And then, man, Berger, what he's done in the last couple games – has been incredible. He looks like that power back that we've needed. So, I mean, and then you bring in Frias, and he's this square, the little mini refrigerator that you have in the corner of your college dorm, right? He's just this square human being, and he runs so freaking hard, and he's such a team leader that all these guys getting involved, and then you get the three backs, and where's Nico? Hey, he's behind the guard. They're going to snap it to Thomas. They're going to snap it to Berger. And then you got Taupaki coming in, and he's blocking somebody that he outweighs by 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there watching this stuff going, how much fun is it to watch UCLA football right now? But again, the whole crux of everything we're mentioning is the run game has made everybody look better. It's made it easier on the O-line. It's made it easier on Nico. And now Nico in this game, as you pointed out, Will, brilliantly, could just be a distributor. Like I saw him after the Penn State game, and I couldn't really say anything on the radio of what I was seeing, but, man, I was like, dude, you need to go get in the ice bath now. And you need to stay there for a long time and see the trainers and go into the oxygen chamber and the cryogenic stuff and do whatever you need to do to get better, because he was beat up. I saw him after this game in the locker room, and he looked just fine. He looked like a quarterback that played on an offense that was doing a lot of good stuff, and he didn't have to take a lot of punishment, and yet he still had 3 touchdown passes, guys. I mean, you know what I mean? It was like, it was really, really good, and it wasn't even perfect. He's only going to get better. You know, and the run game, and I'm going to say it again this week, we can run the ball against Maryland. I really believe that, and I think we will. And it just opens up everything we do. And again, it helps the other side of the ball also.
No question about it, Wayne. And I want to ask you one question, and then we'll segue perfectly to Maryland. You know, this emphasis on the run game. Jerry's calling a lot of runs, which has been fantastic, right? I mean, 43 runs to 24 throws. It just sets everything up. You stay ahead of the chains. It helps your defense. Guys are staying fresh. And we have a trio and now a quartet of running backs that are highly capable. I mean, we talked about Woods being an 1,100-yard back at Idaho at the collegiate level. We talked about Javion Thomas being someone that outplayed Jaden Ott, who got a huge NIL deal at Oklahoma. You know, we're talking about Berger, who we always felt, you know, sort of had that power element to his game these last 2 years, and we were waiting to break it out. Wayne, I'm going to ask you a tough question here, and you can answer it however you like. You've alluded to coaching these last 2 weeks. You've alluded to just the inspiration. I think I have to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. Did we just get it that wrong in terms of coaching prior to this change? Or is this a function of a season where these players have gone through so much adversity and it's bonded them, and any sort of a change would have elevated their play emotionally? Or was this really just sort of a programmatic miss completely in terms of, you know, who we're putting in positions of responsibility?
Yeah, Jamal, that's a simple question. I mean, my gosh, I can't believe you would put me on the spot like that in front of all these people that are listening to us right now. I think we have to be honest and say that it's been a dramatic shift.
Yeah.
I think that and it's not necessarily what you think I'm saying, though. It's not necessarily an insult, because I really did like the other coaches, and have a ton of respect for them. Sometimes it's just not working. I think I said this with you guys before. I think Jerry Neuheisel has been calling plays in his head for a long time now. Oh, yeah. He's been preparing for this for a long time, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. And for them to come in and be able to implement as much new stuff as they have and do it in a way where it's effective and it's working just shows that right now Jerry Neuheisel is miles above what we were doing before. It just when you watch it, sometimes when you watch offenses that struggle, and I felt the same way last year. You watch, and sometimes you're going, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand. Like, you want to have, like, you just mentioned the run game. Like, give the team an identity. When you're running the football and you have an athlete like Nico at quarterback, and then we're starting to realize that our receivers are pretty talented too. Even though none of them had the biggest games in the world, they were all there and participating. I think he threw the ball to 11 different people. That, to me, is what good offense looks like. And when you're doing that and guys only get 2-3 catches each, but it's all spread out and you win by a lot on the road, nobody cares about their stats. They're all celebrating in the locker room like they just won the Super Bowl. Like, it's what it is. So definitely. And then when you look at the same players, and this is the part that always gets me, and I don't know how this works, but I love that Coach Skipper said to us on one of the shows, I don't know how much money these guys are making, nor do I really care. He's going to play the best players. And when you look at he's talking about the NASCAR package when he brings in number 20 and number 41, undersized defensive guys on the outside that can run like the wind, and he brings them in just for pass rush, right? And you start thinking about some of the stuff. We're going to move this guy. We're going to play this guy here. We're going to create stuff that makes our team and the players we have better. I would like to think that we would all think, isn't that what coaches are supposed to do?
Right.
And yet we also know that when we look around the country, that's not what a lot of coaches do. Some coaches have systems, and it either works or it doesn't, and they're unwilling to change. I like the mad scientists. I like the people. I mean, I always tell a story about Homer Smith. He comes back from doing a summer visit to Florida State back when they had Charlie Ward and company, and he says, "Man, we need to run vertical through windows." And it's like he didn't want everybody turning and coming back. We're going to make big plays going downfield, and we did that year. And I mean, you just think back to anybody that was alive watching J.J. Stokes. He did a lot of stuff going vertically downfield and scored a lot of points. But the idea is that you want to have that, and I'll even say this, Homer Smith coached Rick Neuheisel. Rick Neuheisel raised Jerry Neuheisel.
There we go.
And I can promise you, everybody that's associated with that man understands the brilliance of football is always evolving, always changing, always growing. You can never sit still. Soon as you level off, people will pass you by. And so what I'm seeing right now from Jerry Neuheisel is a very innovative play caller. But then you throw in the wily veteran on defense and Kevin Coyle. Somebody, I think he's going to play a huge role this week because Malik Washington in Maryland is a talented young quarterback. He's also one of those young guys that doesn't set his feet and drifts around in the pocket. And he's got a cannon, but he throws off his back foot a lot. I think there's going to be some tricks in there to try to mess with the young guy's head. And if you can do that, you can force some mistakes. So, like, I just think the coaching has shown the willingness to change, to find ways to use the talent on the team the right way. And they've done it so quickly. But doesn't it also feel like we're executing better?
Yeah.
Like we've made changes and we're doing better. So all of that is obvious. And again, sometimes like James Franklin could go down in this last little era of football. He's top 10 coaches, maybe even higher than that when you look at wins and losses. But it's possible that he just lost the locker room. He lost his voice. He lost, you can say whatever you do, but they just weren't playing for him anymore. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens faster than it should. And maybe that's what happened with the last staff, and this new staff has brought in some new ideas and new energy that just for some reason works with this current team. So I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I am saying that it's been pretty obvious. I mean, it's one of the most drastic turnarounds, I think. It's got to be historical, and if it keeps going, you know what I mean? And that's the whole key here. We can't be we don't want to be a one hit wonder, but we also don't want to be a 2-hit wonder because those bands suck too. Okay, you want to keep winning and keep writing good songs.
No question, Wayne. No question. Thriller, question from you.
Yeah, I think, the fan base is super interested, Wayne, about Kevin Coyle, the defensive coordinator. You alluded to him at the top of the show. What type of guy is this for these young kids on the defense? Because we've talked about Neuheisel. We've talked about Skip. Coyle's kind of the guy in the shadows right now that's not getting the credit he deserves. He was a defensive coordinator in the NFL for the Miami Dolphins for about 4 years. What kind of guy is Kevin Coyle, and what are some of the defensive shifts you've seen with this defense to really kind of unlock? I mean, you mentioned the Andre Jordan knockdown. Roderick Pleasant had a knockdown the play before on third down that was insane. Alpew's getting to the quarterback. We held Michigan State to 87 yards rushing last week. This is a completely looking defense. It's not getting the talking points that Skipper and Jerry are getting.
Well, so you guys, this is why I love coming on Bruin Bible, you guys. You just do such a great job of asking amazing questions because this is exactly what we're all thinking about. And for me, I always feel like I have more access before the season, and then once the season starts and traveling and I go back to work and it's a little bit different. I have not actually shook Kevin Coyle's hand yet.
Wow.
I sat in the team dinner with Noel Mazzoni and had a nice little prime rib the other night before the game, which is like kind of fun. I always find a way to sneak myself into wherever there's food. But you get to talk to people and you get to meet people. I've walked by him a couple times now, but I do not know him yet because I met Tim Skipper for the first time in the coaches show. I told him straight up, I go, Coach, I didn't know you were on our staff. And I knew all about him at Fresno State because I remember it was such a cool – at Fresno State, it was such a cool story. And they had a hard time deciding, do we keep him? Because he did really well there too. And the players loved him and they played for him and the fan base loved him. So it makes it tricky. But one of the things that bothers me, and this is kind of like the people that throw out the LeBron and Michael, who's better? Why do we have to choose between these three new coaches? And why can't we just say they've all been excellent?
Yeah.
I think it's funny that sometimes on social media, it's like, well, why is so-and-so getting so much credit? Well, first of all, offense wins always. It's just when offense is good, people get real excited about it. But if you're paying attention, that defensive performance against Michigan State, and I pointed it out because I had their record up. I mean, they scored 23, 42, 41, 31, 27, and then 13. Okay, that 13 was against the Kevin Coyle-led UCLA defense. By the way, at home for them.
Yeah.
At home for them.
Homecoming.
So that was a dominating, fantastic, awesome performance that you have to start. And this is the other thing, too. You mentioned the three-headed, because I want them all mentioned together, the assistants. And this is where this is crucial to me. All of them don't know what their future holds.
Yeah.
None of them do. Even those three, even the top three, but everybody on down doesn't know what they hold, what's going to happen. They are still competing. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. They're still out recruiting. They're doing everything they can to help these teams and these players win. And if you think about it, if you're happy for UCLA, all of them are keeping doors open for them because of what's happening right now.
Right.
We're seeing coaches succeed, and maybe where it might have been hard for them moving forward if they lose every game and their positions stink that they're coaching, now we're seeing people do really, really well, and you're starting to go, maybe that change showed that these guys really can coach. So it makes me happy for all of them because sometimes I run out of words because I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
I was ready for the worst, and now, and your question was about Coach Coyle. I just love his willingness to rotate. I love that. I don't know if you guys saw this. The first few games of the year, I thought this vividly after Utah. I went, God, we look slow.
Right. I remember you said that on the show.
We look unathletic. We look lost. And then fast forward through the New Mexico game, and I'm going, yeah, New Mexico looked like they have as good athletes as we do. I'm like, I'm blown away because I just couldn't believe it because I watched camp. I'm like, I know our athletes are better than this. And then you play Penn State and Michigan State, you start going, okay, it just feels like they're more comfortable with what they're doing. And when that happens, you start seeing the team speed and everything else, and they're more aggressive, they're tackling better. Like you take every aspect of the game, and it's been times 10. It's been that much better.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wayne, it's just sort of unprecedented right now. What's going on? I think we're all at a loss for words and just sort of enjoying the ride. And so the ride now moves on against Maryland, Wayne, and really curious about your thoughts. You alluded to it. Interesting Maryland team here. They're young. They started 4-0. A lot of excitement on could they be a dark horse. And then after the 4-0 start, 2 consecutive games at home against Big Ten competition where they had the lead, they had control of the game and couldn't close the deal. I mean, they were up 20-0 on Washington with about 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. Washington goes 24 straight on them and beats them and clips them at home. And then again against Nebraska, they were able to intercept Raiola 3 times. They took a pick 6 to the house, up 7 and late in the third in that game. Nebraska finds a way to come back and clip them yet again. They're 4-2. And now it's sort of a team that's, I think at a crossroads, because when you look at their 4 wins, FAU, NIU, Towson, And then we thought that at Wisconsin game was going to be their coming out party. Wisconsin might go 2-10 this year, Wayne. I mean, Wisconsin is not really a Big Ten caliber team this year. I can't believe I'm saying that sentence, but it really is true. You got Malik Washington, first-year starter, super talented, but you also have a couple of nice receivers, nice raw athletes there. They got Knotts, they got Octavian Smith Jr., a couple of nice targets for Malik Washington, but their leading running back, DeJuan Williams, sub 4 yards per carry over the course of these 6 games, particularly in some of those stat padding early games. So a team that's kind of struggled to run the ball consistently. They've hit some big plays vertically because of that great arm of Malik Washington and some nice athletes. But this is a young team that's raw, that's traveling cross country for the first time. And, so much is made of when the West Coast teams have to go cross country. Now it's, the quote unquote traditional Big Ten teams need to come out West Coast. That's a tough trip for a young team. I'm feeling very good about UCLA's chances here. I think if they can do a rinse and repeat with the way this offense has been humming with the running game and doing similar things defensively in terms of crowding Malik Washington and confusing him, particularly from the edges, particularly from the linebacker spot, the way they did with Childs, this feels like a very winnable game, and the show rolls on. But would love to get your thoughts on Maryland.
Well, that was fantastic. I mean, Maryland, one thing I like is they're not a great running football team. And I do think Malik is a very talented quarterback. He's got way more potential than Aiden Childs, in my opinion. Aiden Childs is actually damaged goods at this point. I think he's getting worse, and I think that Michigan State, whether he's healthy or hurt, needs to move on and try something else. But there are some similarities too. And so what happens with some young, athletic, big, because he's big, strong arm quarterbacks is their high school coaches and their youth coaches allow them to have bad habits. If you watch the Nebraska game, Jake Butt was one of the broadcasters, and he's a tight end, and he's talking about why is he drifting backwards? Why isn't he stepping into his throws? These are things that I appreciate about Nico. Nico moves forward really, really well. He tends to every once in a while he'll go backwards because he has to, but for the most part, if you pay attention, he really wants to climb the pocket, and he does such a good job of that, which leads to him opening up to that big 6'6" frame, taking off and running like an oversized Lamar Jackson, down the field, and we love that. But he's a drifter, Malik Washington. He just kind of floats around, and it feels like he's just floating around. Usually pass plays are predicated on timing. And it starts with your plant foot. And then there's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 read, and however you do it by zones or whatever you want to do. A lot of times you see a lot of these young quarterbacks that are just athletes. They just kind of float around looking for who's open. And you'll even watch their eyes sometimes. They'll go back and forth, which is weird. So you see that. And so that's why when you talk about, I call it, you got to muddy up the water a little bit for him. You don't want to give him, and that's why Kevin Coyle comes into play here. That's why a defensive coach like Coach Meat that have been around for a long time, you could mess with young quarterbacks. Obviously he's got legs so he can escape and get out and run. But if he's floating around and throwing stuff off his back foot, you can disguise stuff and come at him in different ways and hopefully cause some mistakes. That's a really, really big deal. But the rush defense when you watch that, for Maryland, I just think UCLA's got a great opportunity. And one of the things that the Penn State game did is everybody, and I think they already knew this, but everybody's like, we got to watch out for Nico too. And so that just adds something to the run game now because you have to worry about everybody. And then, Nico's also capable of the RPO and stuff like that. So it just makes this offense very, very, very dangerous. But I think the run game is going to be the key because I think they can gash Maryland. I think they're going to have – now, they've got great pass rushers. That number 9, I'm forgetting his name right now, is a really good player.
Mathis and Sidney Stewart, the 2 true freshmen, each have 4.5 sacks this year. They're like on freshman All-American trajectory.
Yeah, you could feel their athleticism. You could see it, too. They look the part. But if you're running at those guys, they're not as effective. So you slow people down with the run game when it comes. If you let them just pin their ears back because you're going to throw 40 times, it's a little bit different. And then remember this too, you guys. A lot of stats were padded in that early part of the schedule. But, and this is the part that I thought was interesting, I actually think Washington, it's a shame they're not in the top 25. Their only loss is 20-6 against Ohio State. But there's a huge middle to, I don't know if you guys feel this way. There's like a huge group of teams there's like Ohio State, Indiana. I actually think, and I thought this, believe it or not, even before Oregon lost, because I was never sold on Penn State. And I don't want to act like I knew before I knew. I didn't think they were going to struggle like they did. I didn't think they were going to fire their coach. But I actually thought that the Oregon-Penn State overtime thing wasn't as good for Oregon as everybody else thought it was. I thought Oregon, because of what everybody was saying, because remember, Oregon really hadn't played a whole lot before that game either. And we were like, Dante Moore's going to be a Heisman, and it was fine. But then, and then you start seeing against tougher opponents, it hasn't been quite as easy. And so I'm not sure. I still think what I'm seeing from Ohio State and Julian Sand and Caleb Downs and all those great players, they're like legitimately elite. Yeah. And then the Indiana, we forget about, Illinois went right back to winning kind of after they got boat raced by Indiana. And I think SC's pretty good this year too. I hate to say that on the show, but I think they've got a ton of talent. If they could stay out of their own way, I think they're dangerous. But I think there's a lot of teams where these games can go either way. I think Maryland hung in there with Washington and Nebraska. Nebraska has been winning ugly. You know what I mean? If you watch them, they make mistakes. Raiola's still throwing interceptions sometimes, and it's not always pretty, but they're finding ways to win under Matt Rule. So it just feels like there's so many games coming up that could go either direction.
Right.
We'll see about Indiana, and we'll see about Ohio State on the road. I mean, those are tall orders. I'm not going to, trust me, with this team, what they're doing, I'm not going to put anything past them. But everything else is on the table from what I've seen. And so, I do. I think there's opportunities against Maryland. I think this is a game UCLA has to have. And can I just ramble a little bit more?
Please.
Please, go.
So after the game, I made a comment in the post-game show about people showing up at the Rose Bowl. I actually thought the crowd of 39 or 40 or whatever it was at the last home game of Penn State was fantastic. I thought there was a third down that the crowd messed with the play calling, and it ended up helping the team. There were moments in that game where that crowd was feisty enough to where they mattered. And it wasn't a big crowd. We'll all admit that, but it was still feisty enough to where it had a difference in that game, and it was very fun to be a part of. So I make that comment, and then we find out that Tim Skipper on TV did the same type of thing. There's been letters going out. There's been stuff to bring fans. First-year students can get in for free. There's going to be buses for the students to come to the game. It's just all encouragement, and yet sometimes I get the feedback. And again, I'm going to be really careful and really political right now because people are mad about certain things. And they're like, well, I'll start going when things, and I'm like, if you're a Bruin, and again, you can disagree with me if you want to. If you're a Bruin, man, these players are busting their ass for you. These coaches are busting their butt for you. Man, come out and support them. I get it. You can protest stuff in other ways. You can go have a picket sign out in front of the stadium if you want to, but still go into the game and cheer on your freaking team. These guys, I'm telling you, the Rose Bowl can be electric. This is exciting. This is how much fun have you had these last couple of games? Come be a part of it at the Rose Bowl. Show up. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff. What better time, too? It's perfect. So let's get 70-something. Let's show up at the Rose Bowl, and let's get loud and crazy. And so the nation, for all those people that wrote off UCLA, let's show them that we can be real fans and show up. I really wanted to get that out because
it's the right thing because it's homecoming, and we got the throwback uniforms. There's a sort of a taste of what the helmets might look like. I mean, it's a very special time in this season because if you get this game, Wayne, and get to 3-4, there's a world here where, we've been talking about it of bowl eligibility and Thriller. I'll hand it over to you here in just a sec.
Could be Big Noon in Indiana too. You never know. You
never know. It's spot on about this middle element here, Wayne. Ohio State, Indiana look like they're sort of lapping the field right now. I'm not going to jump off the Oregon train just yet.
I'm not either. They're right there. They're in that
right
top
they're
three.
Third,
yeah.
They're top three. Yeah. But I think to your point, who's the fourth best team in the Big Ten right now? I mean, it's you're jockeying between Michigan, Nebraska, SC, Washington. I mean, it's a wide range. And guess what? UCLA plays Washington. UCLA plays Nebraska. UCLA plays SC. UCLA has a chance to be the fourth best team in the Big Ten.
Hey Jamal, let's listen to this. And Will, how great is it for all the Big Ten snobs, about how just Big Ten football, for the two LA schools to kick the crud out of the two Michigan schools?
Yeah. Totally.
Just because if you watch the SC Michigan game, it wasn't a game.
That was not close.
USC and the Michigan State UCLA game wasn't either. So there you go. I mean, I loved it. I kind of walked away from that going, that's pretty cool. Not that I was surprised, but that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. Thriller, over to you.
Yeah, I think the key to UCLA in this game is not turning the ball over. Maryland is leading the nation in turnover margin right now. They have 12 interceptions, guys, in 6 games. That's 2 a ball game that they're picking with these ball hawks out here. So if Nico can play clean football again, he's done it the last 2 weeks. He's done it very impressively. I think there's a real chance that UCLA can win on homecoming, bring some love back to the UCLA fan base, get the people excited again. It may be a little bit of a test. Luckily, we have a running backs room that can maybe withstand this, but Anthony Woods isn't practicing right now. We don't know if he's a go for Saturday. He's been a huge spark plug, so I'm interested to see that. And then I'd be interested in hearing your guys' key impact players for this game. I think, I'm looking at this defensive line. We kind of got some juice going. Keanu made a play last week. We had Alpew with the stripped sack. Can we get to Malik Washington? He's been pretty outstanding in the turnover margin. 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's a 5 touchdown to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. Can we get some picks? We haven't had an interception this year compared to Maryland, who's got 12. Can we win this turnover battle? I think that's the key to what's going on here. Who are some of the keys to the game for you, Madman, before we hand it back over to Wayne?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's spot on, Thriller, how you broke it up. And it sort of lends itself, right? Everything we've talked about has lent itself to running the ball, as much as possible, because to your point, it's a secondary that's very opportunistic. It's guys in the secondary that can catch the ball. Not every secondary can say that. And so, they have a nose for the ball. They've got great instincts. But even to the earlier point about Matthews and Stewart, and Wayne, you touched on this, young kids, great pass rushers. But what happens usually with really good young pass rushers, they lose gap contain. And, particularly when you lose gap contain, you can really gash them in the run game, because they're trying to make the spectacular play. So between, you're using Maryland's strengths against them, from a running game perspective. You start going zone stretch, you start going RPO, those two edges lose gap contain, and you're taking the secondary out of the equation in terms of being able to intercept the ball. So I think this is going to be a big game. Hopefully Woods plays. This one feels to me kind of twofold. I think this is the Jet game. I think Javion Thomas, I'm ready for that 125-yard, 2-3 touchdown performance. I'm feeling that, just given that this matchup and given that Woods might be a little bit banged up. I think Berger is going to get, he's going to get his in the red zone in those tough yards. But those gash runs that we're talking about, this is set up for a Javion Thomas game. And then I think on the defensive side, I think this is the game that Anthony Jones puts it together, particularly with Malik Washington. Wayne, to your point, the mechanics, the footwork, perhaps holding the ball too long, not giving up on plays, not being decisive enough. This really sort of lends itself to really nice edge play. So I'm seeing Javion Thomas offensively, Anthony Jones defensively. Obviously, Nico's going to be Nico, Jerry's going to be Jerry, Skip's going to be Skip, and Coyle's going to be Coyle. But those two, to me, I think are going to stand out.
Well, this, first of all, you guys just did it perfect. I don't have to say anything. The one thing I will add to this is that just my own observation, I think Maryland's better than Michigan State. I just feel like they have better athletes. I feel like they're probably not that Michigan State was beat down, but that was a game that was just weird. It just didn't feel like a Jonathan Smith team. I still think this Maryland team feels like they have a lot to play for. I think they're excited about all those young players, and I think they're well coached. But it just feels like it's another game though that I watched the tape though, and you said it, like our strength, even without Woods, who adds that something out of the backfield. We all saw that play in the open field where he just absolutely the guy's jock was over here, and he just completely shook him. And I was getting so excited but then you start thinking about it, and we have so much depth at running back that I'm like, I think not that we won't miss him because we will, but I feel like those three guys, and then add in Frias, who's getting more playing time, they're all good, and they all bring a little. I mean, like. I feel like it's funny because Berger, I thought he was going to kind of fade away, and then he's become the guy that's leading the charge. And so they're just all really good players. And I agree with you on Jet. Like Jet's like he's ready for a breakout game. I think he's been really good anyway. Sometimes I think it all just comes down to sometimes that whoever's in the game when the right play's called ends up getting that big play, because I think they're all so comparable. So I love it. I love the way offensive line's playing. I got a chance to talk to Unije after the game. I'm interviewing him, and Cortland Ford standing right there like, you could have talked to me too. And I'm like, bring it on, let's go. And they were just so pumped up. And you mentioned Andy Kwan earlier, Will. Yeah. He's been a guy that's given me like an aggressive high five before every game. Like, let's go. Like he's like really fired up, and I have to be careful. Hurt my throwing hand. I should start putting my other hand up. But they've done a fantastic job. But again, it comes down to play calling and set everything up to where you can negate what they're good at. Like, I agree. Their secondary, you saw it. They make plays. The rush guys are athletic. Yeah. So you call a game. And I think I heard some story. I heard a story about, I think it was Hudson. I think it was today. He was talking about how, they're like, he's like being like the delivery guy for Jerry, because his Jerry's wife's calling and saying, "Hey, take Jerry some food," because he's the mad scientist up in the office coming up with plays to call. So, and then he's got another mad scientist, Noel Mazzoni, sitting there with him, who we haven't mentioned yet. That's been a great addition also.
No question.
And they're sitting there scheming. These guys are scheming plays. So I have full confidence they're going to come up with a great game plan. I have full confidence that everybody's going to show up except for a few grumpy people, and they're going to show up at the Rose Bowl, and they're going to have the time of their life. And I don't want to get carried away, because I don't know if I like it that we're favored. I kind of like being the underdogs. But remember, these players are having so much fun right now. But I always go back to when Nick Saban said, it's like rat poison, right? The media and positive press and all that stuff. They've been the Cinderella story of this season. You still got to act like you're in the basement. You still got to remember you're a 2-4 team. You still have to remember that you have a lot of proving to do. And I think if they keep that edge and they keep that, chip on their shoulder, I think it'll really help.
Will really help indeed, Wayne. We're excited about Saturday, and you heard it from Wayne. Pack that Rose Bowl, support this team. There is room on the bandwagon. Jump on the bandwagon, because there might not be any more room after about 8 p.m. on Saturday. And before we get out of here, we got to give ode to our sponsors. As you can see, the Sleeper app below. Number one sports app out there right now from a betting perspective. Hit that promo code UCLA LAFB and get 100 off on your initial 100. It's a match bonus. Tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. A little secret about Sleeper: it's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. Millions of users have enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app has so much more: live stats, news feed, real-time chat. Download the number one sports app today and experience it for yourself, and tell them the guys at LAFB Network sent you. Well, Wayne, it's always a pleasure. It's a privilege to have you on. You have the red carpet, carte blanche, anytime on the LAFB Network, and we're very excited to have you on, hopefully very, very soon, to talk about a third consecutive UCLA victory and the dreams continue.
You guys are always the best, and I'm going to start throwing this out there for future years. You see that blue jersey behind me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta have a throwback that's from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's the Bruin blue I grew up with. I know we're going back to the old line, which I love, by the way. Those are great jerseys, and they look awesome. But come on, that's the Bruin blue right there that I always knew. It would be nice to see that at some point too. It'd be a cool throwback.
Really cool throwback indeed. Absolutely, Wayne. Great shout out there. And so, folks, couple days until kickoff. And until then, be loud, be proud, be passionate Bruins. And like we always say on LAFB, fours up forever.